The rain drummed softly against the windows of the Peterson suburban home as the family gathered in the warmly lit living room. It was Emma's 7th birthday, and she sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes gleaming with excitement as she tore away the wrapping paper from her final gift. Inside, nestled in a pristine box, was a porcelain doll. The doll was exquisite, her pale face painted with delicate features, her lips a soft shade of pink, and her glassy blue eyes wide and innocent. She wore a vintage lace dress, perfectly preserved with a tiny pair of black leather shoes. Her golden curls framed her face, making her look almost lifelike. Emma gasped in delight. "She's beautiful." Her parents, Daniel and Claire, exchanged a pleased smile. "We thought you'd like her," Claire said, kneeling beside her daughter. "She's special. The lady at the antique shop said she's one of a kind." Emma cradled the doll in her arms, pressing its porcelain face to her cheek. "Her name is Annabelle," she declared. The name sent a small shiver through Claire, but she shook it off. It was just a doll. That night, Emma refused to sleep without Annabelle, tucking the doll under the covers beside her. Claire kissed her daughter goodnight and turned off the light, leaving the soft glow of the nightlight to cast gentle shadows along the walls. At first, the changes in the house were subtle. A door left slightly ajar when no one had touched it. A faint whispering sound that could be explained away as the wind. The television flickering on and off in the middle of the night. Daniel assumed it was faulty wiring. Claire dismissed it as her imagination. But then Emma began talking to Annabelle. "Who are you talking to, sweetie?" Claire asked one afternoon, peeking into Emma's room. "Annabelle," Emma said matter-of-factly. "She doesn't like it when we close the closet." Claire frowned. "What do you mean?" Emma glanced at the half-open closet and then back at her mother. "She says the dark is bad." Claire chuckled nervously. "Dolls don't talk, sweetheart." Emma just smiled and hugged Annabelle tighter. That night, Claire woke suddenly, her throat dry. As she made her way to the kitchen for a glass of water, she heard something, a faint, rhythmic tapping. She followed the sound down the hallway, stopping outside Emma's room. The closet door was fully open. Emma was sound asleep, Annabelle nestled in her arms. Claire's stomach tightened. She was sure she had closed that door before bed. She stepped forward and gently pushed it shut. The tapping stopped. As she turned to leave, she caught something in the corner of her eye. Annabelle's glassy blue eyes seemed to gleam in the dim light. For a fleeting moment, Claire could have sworn the doll was watching her. Shaking off the unease, she hurried back to bed, convincing herself that everything was fine. But deep down she knew something wasn't right. And this was only the beginning. The atmosphere in the Mitchell house had shifted. The air felt heavier, charged with something unseen, something unnatural. Claire could feel it pressing against her skin like static before a thunderstorm. Daniel noticed it too, though he never voiced his concerns outright. But it was Emily who seemed the least affected. If anything, she seemed happier than ever. "Annabelle talks to me now," she said casually over breakfast one morning. Daniel nearly choked on his coffee. "Talks to you?" Emily nodded. "She whispers at night. She tells me stories." Claire and Daniel exchanged a wary glance. "Sweetheart," Claire said carefully, "are you sure you're not just dreaming?" Emily giggled. "No, Mommy. She's real. She moves when you're not looking." That night, Claire lay awake listening. The house was eerily quiet, too quiet. Then around 3:15 a.m., the baby monitor in Emily's room crackled to life. A soft giggle. Then a whisper. Claire bolted upright. The whisper was faint, almost indiscernible, but it was there. And it wasn't Emily's voice. She shook Daniel awake. "Do you hear that?" Daniel groggily turned his head, and just as he strained to listen, the whisper stopped. Claire wasted no time. She hurried down the hall and slowly pushed open Emily's door. The room was bathed in the dim glow of her nightlight. Emily was fast asleep, Annabelle nestled beside her. Claire exhaled, shaking her head. Maybe she was just exhausted. She turned to leave. And then, something moved in the corner of her eye. Her breath hitched. The rocking chair in the corner, where she had placed the doll earlier that night, was now slightly swaying. The air grew colder. The shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally along the walls. Claire took a shaky step back. Then Emily stirred. "Mommy?" she mumbled sleepily. Claire forced a smile. "It's okay, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." But as she turned off the baby monitor and left the room, her mind raced with dread. The next morning things escalated. Max, their dog, had scratched deep gouges into Emily's door overnight, as if desperate to get in, or to keep something inside. Claire found the kitchen chairs inexplicably stacked on top of each other. Daniel's work papers were strewn across the floor as if someone had rifled through them. The entire house felt wrong, as though something invisible was watching them. And worst of all, Emily's behavior had changed. She spoke less and stared off into space for long periods. She would laugh at things no one else could see. And sometimes, Claire could swear she heard two sets of giggles coming from Emily's room. One from her daughter and another, quieter, more sinister. It was no longer just paranoia. Something was in their house. And Claire was starting to believe that Annabelle was at the center of it all. Claire and Daniel had reached their breaking point. The moment Emily stood at their bedroom doorway at 3:15 a.m., whispering in a voice not her own, they knew they had to get out. Daniel grabbed the car keys. "We're leaving. Right now." Claire didn't argue. She rushed to grab Emily, but as soon as she touched her daughter's arm, the lights exploded. A chilling wind rushed through the house and a voice hissed through the darkness, "You cannot take her." Claire screamed, yanking Emily into her arms and running to the door. Daniel fumbled with the lock, but the door wouldn't budge. The house trembled as a low, guttural growl echoed from the shadows. Max barked wildly, baring his teeth at something unseen. Suddenly the windows shattered. Daniel threw himself against the door with all his strength and finally, it gave way. They ran. They didn't stop until they reached the house of Elena Vasquez, a psychic who had agreed to help. Standing beside her was Father Michael, a priest well-versed in exorcisms. Elena's face darkened as she listened to their story. "You're not dealing with a simple spirit," she said. "You're dealing with something ancient. Something evil." Father Michael gripped his rosary. "We need to go back. That doll must be destroyed." Daniel swallowed hard. "Then let's end this." The drive back to the Mitchell house was filled with tense silence. Claire clutched Emily tightly in the back seat, whispering reassurances to her trembling daughter, while Daniel's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Elena Vasquez, the psychic, sat beside Father Michael, her eyes closed as if mentally preparing for the battle ahead. "This entity is powerful," Elena finally said, breaking the silence. "It has latched onto Emily through the doll. But if we sever its connection, we may be able to banish it." Father Michael nodded. "We'll have to perform the ritual inside the house. The entity won't let us simply take the doll and destroy it. It will fight back." As the car pulled into the driveway, the house loomed before them, its once charming Victorian exterior now appearing ominous under the flickering streetlight. The moment they stepped out, the air grew thick and suffocating, filled with an unnatural chill that sent shivers down their spines. The front door, which had stubbornly refused to open earlier, now stood ajar, as if inviting them in. Father Michael took a deep breath and clutched his cross. "We don't have much time. Let's end this." Inside, the house was eerily silent. The air smelled of decay and burning wood, as though something old and foul was lingering within the walls. Max, their German shepherd, hesitated at the entrance, growling lowly. Elena took a vial of holy water from her satchel and sprinkled it at the doorway. The liquid sizzled as if burning through something unseen. "It knows we're here," she whispered. As they advanced into the living room, a sudden bang erupted from upstairs. The sound of childish giggles echoed through the halls, giggling that did not belong to Emily. "She's waiting for us," Elena muttered. Claire held Emily close as they made their way up the stairs. The air grew colder with each step. The moment they reached Emily's room, the door slammed shut on its own. Daniel forced it open, and what they saw inside made Claire gasp in horror. The doll, Annabelle, sat on the rocking chair staring at them. But its once porcelain face had cracked, revealing something sinister underneath. Its blue glass eyes had turned black, void-like pits that seemed to pull the light from the room. The walls were covered in dark symbols, written in a language none of them understood. The rocking chair moved on its own, creaking softly as the entity inside the doll laughed. Father Michael stepped forward, raising his cross. "In the name of God, I command you to reveal yourself." The laughter stopped. The air grew still. Then, the doll moved. It twisted its head unnaturally, and a shrill, ear-piercing scream exploded from its lips. The room shook violently as objects flew off the shelves. The bed levitated for a brief moment before slamming back down. Daniel pulled Claire and Emily back while Elena began chanting in Latin, her voice steady despite the chaos. She sprinkled more holy water toward the doll, and the walls trembled as the entity shrieked in agony. Father Michael joined in, his voice booming over the demonic wails. "I cast you out, unholy spirit. Leave this place." Annabelle's body convulsed. Black tendrils of smoke leaked from its cracks, swirling angrily. The temperature dropped even further, and suddenly, Emily was yanked from Claire's grip by an unseen force. No! Claire screamed as Emily was lifted into the air, her small body suspended as if held by invisible hands. Her eyes rolled back and the child's lips moved, but the voice that came out was not hers. "She belongs to me," the voice rasped, distorted and unnatural. "You cannot take her. Let her go." Daniel roared, but his body was pinned against the wall by an invisible force. Claire screamed as she too was thrown back. Max barked and lunged at the floating doll, biting into it, and for a brief moment the force loosened. Emily dropped to the ground, coughing and gasping. Elena seized the opportunity, drawing a circle of protection around the child. Father Michael stepped closer to the doll, holding his cross high. "You will return to the darkness from which you came. Begone." The doll let out an inhuman shriek, its body contorting violently. The shadows in the room swirled wildly, and then in one final deafening cry, the doll burst into flames. Emily let out a startled cry as the fire engulfed the porcelain figure, its blackened eyes staring blankly as it burned. The shadows twisted and recoiled before disappearing into the walls, the last of their wretched presence dissipating with an agonized howl. And then, silence. The temperature in the room returned to normal. The house no longer felt oppressive. The dark symbols on the walls vanished, leaving behind nothing but the scent of charred porcelain. Claire rushed to Emily, cradling her daughter as tears streamed down her face. Daniel, shaken but alive, collapsed beside them, holding them both. "It's over," Elena whispered, her voice hoarse. Father Michael exhaled heavily, watching as the last embers of the cursed doll faded into ash. The Mitchells left the house the very next day, unwilling to stay another moment in the place that had nearly taken their daughter from them. Elena and Father Michael performed a final cleansing, ensuring that no trace of the entity remained. The house stood silent, empty, its shadows finally at peace. As the family drove away, Emily looked out the window, watching the house grow smaller in the distance. "Mommy?" she whispered. Claire turned to her. "Yes, sweetheart?" Emily hesitated, then shook her head. "Nothing," she murmured. But as she turned back to the window, her fingers absent-mindedly traced the outline of a small, invisible figure on the glass. Somewhere in the quiet corners of the world, a soft giggle echoed once more. This story is entirely a work of imagination.